When the students unite to save the teacher who changed their lives, something unexpected happens that no one saw coming. Mr. Wang stepped out of his car and took a deep breath, the crisp autumn air filling his lungs as he took in the sight of Jefferson High. The sprawling brick building seemed uninviting with its chipped paint and worn-out playground, but to him it represented a new beginning. He adjusted his glasses, ran a hand through his neatly trimmed hair, and straightened his tie, feeling a mix of hope and determination. As a newly hired teacher, he was acutely aware of the school's reputation, a battleground where 5 teachers had been expelled in just 6 months. The challenge before him loomed large, but his military background had instilled in him a sense of resilience and purpose. As he walked through the school's hallway, the murmurs of students surrounded him like a swarm of bees. Some exchanged wary glances, while others snickered, clearly skeptical of the new teacher. He approached the teacher's lounge where a few faculty members were gathered, their expressions a mix of pity and disbelief. "Good luck, Mr. Wang," one of the older teachers said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "You'll need it." "Yeah, those kids eat teachers for breakfast," another chimed in, a hint of laughter escaping his lips. Undeterred, Wang forced a smile. "I appreciate the advice. I'm here to make a difference." As he entered his classroom for the first time, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The students were sprawled across their desks, some chatting animatedly while others scrolled through their phones. The air buzzed with a mix of defiance and disinterest. Wang cleared his throat, trying to command their attention. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Mr. Wang, and I'll be your English teacher this year," he announced, his voice steady. A tall student named Marcus, known for his rebellious streak, shot up from his seat, a grin plastered across his face. "Yeah, right. You think we're going to listen to you? What makes you so special?" Laughter erupted from the other students, and Wang felt the sting of their mockery. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, recalling the drills and strategies he had learned in the military. "I understand that you all have had challenges with teachers in the past," he began, maintaining eye contact with Marcus. "I'm not here to be your enemy, I'm here to help you. We can make this class interesting, but it requires respect from both sides." "Respect?" Marcus scoffed. "What do you know about respect? You're just a teacher." The laughter intensified and Wang's heart raced. He could feel the chaos beginning to spiral. "Let's try something different," he said, attempting to regain control. "How about we talk about what you want to learn?" "Nothing," Marcus replied nonchalantly, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed defiantly. The classroom erupted in laughter once more, and Wang's initial approach began to falter. The traditional methods of discipline he had relied on in the past seemed utterly ineffective here. He felt a growing frustration within him, but also a dawning realization. He needed to adapt, to connect with these students in a way that resonated with their experiences. After a tumultuous 45 minutes, the bell rang, signaling the end of class. Wang stood at his desk, feeling defeated, his shoulders slumped. He watched as the students filed out, voices echoing in the hallway, leaving him with a sense of isolation. He took a deep breath, allowing the silence of the empty classroom to wash over him. Sitting down at his desk, he reflected on the chaos of the day. He thought about his time in the military, where the strength of a unit often depended on understanding and camaraderie. It was not about barking orders, but about building trust and respect. He recalled how he had struggled to connect with some of his own team members, learning that empathy and vulnerability could bridge the gap. "Maybe I need to find a way to reach them," he muttered to himself, determination igniting within him. He pulled out his notebook, ready to devise a new strategy. This was just the beginning, and he was not ready to give up. The stakes were high, but so was his commitment to these students. If he could find a way to reach Marcus and the others, perhaps he could turn their dismal reputation around, one step at a time. As the bell rang, signaling the start of class, Mr. Wang took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. His classroom, adorned with a few colorful posters and a whiteboard filled with reminders of upcoming assignments, was a stark contrast to the chaos he had experienced during his first encounter with the students. He had decided that today would be different. He would open up a dialogue, sharing not just his knowledge, but a piece of himself. "All right, everyone," he began, his voice steady but warm. "Today, we're not going to dive right into the curriculum. Instead, I want to hear from you. What's going on in your lives? What challenges are you facing?" A murmur of surprise swept through the room. This was not what they had expected from a teacher, especially one who had just entered their chaotic world. Marcus, sitting in the back with a smirk on his face, raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. You really want to know? He shot back, arms crossed defiantly. Absolutely, Wang replied, meeting Marcus's gaze with sincerity. I'm not just here to teach you, I want to understand you. We all have things that weigh us down. Some students exchanged glances, uncertain. Finally, a girl named Jasmine, her voice barely above a whisper, spoke up. My parents are always fighting. It's hard to focus on school when I'm worried about what's going to happen at home. Wang nodded, his heart aching for her. Thank you for sharing that, Jasmine. That sounds really tough. I've faced difficult times too, and I can tell you that it's okay to feel how you feel. As he shared his own experiences from his military days, stories of camaraderie and struggles, he watched the students lean in, curiosity replacing their earlier apathy. I remember a time when I felt lost and alone. It was the support from my team that helped me push through. You're not alone in this, we can support each other. The atmosphere shifted, and one by one, more students began to open up. Marcus, who had initially challenged Wang, surprisingly spoke up next. I don't really have anyone I can talk to. My dad's not around, and my mom's always working. Sometimes I just feel invisible. Marcus, you're not invisible to me, Wang responded, his voice earnest. I see you, and I want to help you find your voice. The bell rang again, signaling the end of class, but the students lingered, some still sharing their stories, while others exchanged looks of newfound understanding. Wang felt a surge of hope. This was just the beginning, but it was a significant step forward. Weeks passed, and with every class, Wang noticed a change. The students were more engaged, their walls slowly coming down. He introduced creative projects that encouraged them to express themselves, poetry, painting, and even music. Let's turn our feelings into art, he suggested one day as he handed out blank sheets of paper. You can write about anything that's on your mind or draw something that represents your story. At first, there was hesitation. What if it's not good enough? Asked a boy named Eli, his fingers nervously tapping on his desk. There's no such thing as not good enough in this class, Wang assured him. What matters is that you're expressing yourself. Let your feelings flow onto the page. Slowly but surely, the students began to embrace this new way of learning. They shared their poems aloud, and the room filled with laughter, tears, and a sense of community that had previously been absent. One day, Marcus approached Wang after class. I wrote something, he said shyly, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. Can I read it to you? Of course, I'd love that, Wang replied, his heart swelling with pride. As Marcus read his poem, his voice shaky at first but growing stronger with each line, Wang felt a deep sense of accomplishment. This was what education was truly about, connecting, understanding, and guiding these young individuals to find their voices. Then, one afternoon, the principal, Miss Henderson, announced a school-wide competition aimed at improving academic performance. She encouraged all classes to participate and promised a celebratory event for the winners. Wang saw this as an opportunity for his students to shine. Let's do this together, team, he said, excitement bubbling in his chest. What do you all think about entering the competition? We can showcase our projects and everything we've worked on. And a chorus of cheers erupted from the class as eyes sparkled with potential. Let's show them what we can do, Jasmine exclaimed, her earlier hesitation replaced by determination. Wang smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. This was more than just a competition, it was a chance for his students to come together to build a sense of teamwork and pride in their achievements, paving the way for a brighter future. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the classroom windows, the atmosphere in Mr. Wang's room buzzed with energy. The students, once a group of reluctant learners, were now deeply engaged in their projects. Laughter and chatter filled the air as they worked late into the night, fueled by a newfound sense of purpose. Marcus, who had initially resisted Mr. Wang's authority, had transformed into a de facto leader among his peers. His confidence surged as he rallied the others, pushing them to dig deeper into their creative endeavors. Hey, everyone, check this out, Marcus exclaimed, holding up a rough draft of a poem he had written. I think it really captures what we've all been through. The group fell silent, their eyes fixed on him, curious. What's it about? One girl asked, leaning forward in her seat. It's about feeling lost but finding your way, Marcus replied, his voice steady. You know how we all felt when we first got here? It's like we were invisible. He looked around the room, gauging their reactions. I love that, another student chimed in. It's like we're finally being seen, right? The others nodded in agreement, and the room erupted with ideas, each student eager to contribute. Mr. Wang watched from the side, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He had witnessed a remarkable transformation in his students, and their camaraderie was a testament to the trust he had built with them. He stepped forward, breaking into their animated discussion. Marcus, that's a powerful theme. How about we incorporate it into your presentation for the assembly? Really? You think so? Marcus asked, disbelief etched on his face. Absolutely, your voice matters. Let's show everyone what you've created, Mr. Wang encouraged, his eyes shining with sincerity. We're a team, and this is our moment. As the students continued to collaborate, the bond they had formed became evident. They shared stories, laughter, and even their fears, shedding the layers of isolation they had once worn. The night deepened outside, but inside the classroom, the light of hope burned brightly. The day of the school assembly arrived, and excitement buzzed through the hallways of Jefferson High. Students fidgeted with their props, rehearsing lines and practicing their presentations. Mr. Wang stood at the back of the auditorium, watching as his class prepared to take the stage. Their energy was palpable, and he felt a wave of pride wash over him. Okay, everyone, remember to breathe, you've got this, he called out as he approached the group, offering words of encouragement. As the curtain rose, the audience erupted into applause. One by one, Mr. Wang's students stepped into the spotlight, sharing their projects. Marcus opened with his poem, his voice steady even though his hands trembled. I'm not just a number or a face in the crowd, I'm someone who's learning to be proud, he recited, each word resonating with emotion. The audience listened intently, captivated by the raw honesty of the students' expressions. When the presentation concluded, thunderous applause filled the room. The students beamed, their faces lit up with joy and accomplishment. Mr. Wang felt a sense of belonging wash over him. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be part of a community. As they exited the stage, a sense of exhilaration enveloped the class. We did it! We actually did it! One girl exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with delight. I knew we could, Marcus chimed in, slapping high fives with his classmates. This is just the beginning for us. However, the triumph was short-lived. The following week, an unexpected storm loomed on the horizon. During a routine school board meeting, Mr. Thompson, a stern member known for his hardline views, raised concerns about Mr. Wang's unconventional teaching methods. I'm not convinced these creative approaches are effective, he stated harshly, his voice echoing through the room. We need to see numbers, grades, actual evidence of improvement. Mr. Wang's heart sank as he listened to the board member's dismissive tone. The very methods that had ignited a spark in his students were now under scrutiny. He could see the worry etched on the faces of his class, their excitement from the assembly dimming as uncertainty crept in. Mr. Thompson, these students have shown incredible growth. It's not just about grades, it's about their confidence and their ability to express themselves, Mr. Wang argued, his voice steady despite the pressure mounting in the room. Confidence doesn't pay the bills, Mr. Wang, Thompson retorted, crossing his arms. If we don't see tangible results soon, we may have to reconsider funding for your class. The weight of Thompson's words hung heavily in the air, casting a shadow over the successes Mr. Wang and his students had achieved. What had begun as a bright spark of hope now felt precarious, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. But as he looked at the students, he realized that they had come too far to let fear dictate their journey. Together they would find a way to stand strong against the impending storm. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over Jefferson High, Mr. Wang sat alone in his cluttered classroom, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily on his chest. The news had hit him hard that morning. Mr. Thompson was pushing for his dismissal, arguing that the students' grades had not improved sufficiently. Wang ran his fingers through his hair, frustration bubbling under the surface. He had poured his heart and soul into these kids, and yet it felt like he was fighting a losing battle. With a sigh, he stood up and began tidying the room, his thoughts racing. How could they not see the progress? He murmured to himself, recalling the vibrant discussions, the laughter, and the creativity that had flourished in his class. These kids are more than just numbers on a sheet. His military training had instilled in him a sense of duty and resilience, but this was different. This was personal. Just then, Marcus, a student who had transformed from a class troublemaker to a leader, entered the room with a group of his classmates. Their faces were animated, and for a moment, Wang felt a flicker of hope. "Mr. Wang, we need to talk," Marcus exclaimed, his voice filled with urgency. "What's going on, Marcus?" Wang asked, trying to mask his own distress with a reassuring smile. "Look, we know you're worried about Mr. Thompson," Marcus said, glancing at his friends, who nodded in agreement. "But we've been talking, and we want to do something special for you." Wang raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "We're organizing a talent show," shouted another student, Clara, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We want to showcase everything we've learned and how much we appreciate you. It'll be a surprise." Wang's heart swelled with gratitude. "You really don't have to do that," he replied, touched by their thoughtfulness. "Yeah, we do," Marcus insisted. "You believed in us when no one else did. It's time we show everyone what we can do." The energy in the room shifted, and Wang felt a renewed sense of purpose. "All right then, let's make it happen," he said, a smile breaking through the tension that had clouded his mind. Over the next few days, the classroom buzzed with excitement and creativity. Students practiced their acts during lunch breaks, and after school, their laughter echoing in the hallways. Wang watched from the sidelines, pride swelling in his chest as they transformed from hesitant individuals into a cohesive group, united by a common goal. On the night of the talent show, the gymnasium was buzzing with anticipation. Families, faculty, and community members filled the seats, their faces lit with excitement. Wang stood backstage, his heart racing as he watched his students prepare. He could hardly recognize them. They were no longer the troubled kids he had met at the beginning of the year. They were performers, artists, and dreamers. "Mr. Wang," Clara called out, her face glowing under the stage lights. "Are you ready? We're going to knock their socks off." Wang nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "You all are going to do amazing. Just remember to have fun." As the show began, the audience erupted in applause, and Wang felt a wave of emotion wash over him. Each act unfolded beautifully, showcasing the diverse talents of his students. Marcus recited a powerful poem about resilience, while another student, Jamal, performed a mesmerizing dance that left the crowd spellbound. Clara's artwork was displayed for all to see, each piece telling a story of struggle and triumph. As the final act concluded, the audience rose to their feet, cheering and clapping. Wang's heart raced as he looked at his students, their faces radiant with joy and accomplishment. He felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. This was the moment he had hoped for, a culmination of their hard work and growth. Yet even amidst the celebration, a shadow lingered in his mind. The uncertainty of his job still loomed large. Would Mr. Thompson's opinion shift after witnessing this? Would it be enough to secure his position and protect the progress they had made? As the applause echoed around him, Wang took a deep breath, reminding himself that regardless of what happened next, the connection he had forged with his students was invaluable. They had inspired him just as much as he had inspired them. In that moment, he understood that teaching was more than a profession. It was a commitment to fostering hope and resilience in the face of adversity. The auditorium was still buzzing with excitement as the talent show concluded, the applause echoing in Mr. Wang's ears. He stepped off the stage, his heart swelling with pride for his students. They had poured their souls into their performances, sharing their stories through music and art. But as he glanced around, he saw Mr. Thompson standing at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, a skeptical look etched on his face. The moment felt heavy, and the weight of the principal's doubts loomed over Wang like a dark cloud. "Mr. Wang," Thompson called out, striding toward him. The cheer from the students faded as a tension-filled silence enveloped them. Wang straightened, preparing for what he knew would be an uncomfortable conversation. "Congratulations on the show," Thompson said, his tone clipped. "But let's be honest here. Do you really think this is sustainable? A few performances won't change the fact that grades are still lagging." Wang clenched his fists, feeling a surge of protectiveness over his students. "It's not just about the grades, Mr. Thompson. It's about their confidence, their willingness to engage. We're laying a foundation here, one that can lead to long-term success." Thompson scoffed lightly, his skepticism palpable. "Foundations crumble if they aren't built on solid ground. You can't teach these kids to express themselves if they can't pass their exams." Wang took a deep breath, steadying himself. "You're underestimating them. These students have faced challenges that most adults can't even fathom. They need understanding and support, not just rigid academic standards. I believe in their potential to succeed, both in and out of the classroom. Just then, a group of students, including Marcus, who once challenged Wang's authority, stood nearby, their faces a mixture of anger and determination. They had been listening, their expressions shifting from concern to fierce loyalty. Marcus stepped forward, fists clenched at his sides. "Mr. Thompson," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You don't know us like Mr. Wang does. He sees us. He believes in us. You can't just look at the grades and think that's all there is." Thompson raised an eyebrow, taken aback by Marcus's boldness. "And what makes you think that's enough? What happens next semester when the pressure returns?" Another student, Jasmine, joined in. "We're not going to let it go back to the way it was. We're going to prove you wrong. We're more than just numbers on a paper." Wang felt a swell of pride as he watched his students rally together. They were no longer the troubled kids who had been expelled from class after class. They were a united front, inspired by the trust he had placed in them. "We're going to show everyone what we can do," Marcus declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "We're going to fight for our teacher and for ourselves." As Thompson turned to leave, Wang called after him, "We're not giving up. You'll see what they're capable of." Once Thompson was out of earshot, the students huddled together, their energy electrifying the air. "What do we do now?" one of them asked, glancing at Marcus. "We need to make a statement," Marcus said decisively. "Let's hold a protest outside the school board meeting. We'll show them how much Mr. Wang means to us and how much we've grown." The other students nodded, their faces lit with determination. "Yeah, let's gather our families and friends. We'll show them we're serious about this." As they brainstormed ideas, the excitement grew. They began planning signs, chants, and ways to express their gratitude and support for Wang. They were no longer just students, they were advocates ready to fight for their future. "Let's meet tomorrow after school to make posters," Jasmine suggested, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "We need to get the word out." "Agreed," Marcus replied, a grin spreading across his face. "We'll make sure everyone knows how much Mr. Wang has changed our lives." That night, as Wang left the school, he felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. He had inspired these kids, but would it be enough to protect his job? Would the community rally behind them? The uncertainty lingered, but deep down, he knew something had shifted. They were ready to fight for their future, and he was right there with them, committed to nurturing their growth and resilience. The day of the school board meeting had arrived, and the atmosphere in Jefferson High was thick with tension. Mr. Wang paced nervously in front of his classroom, glancing at the clock. His students were gathering in the hallway, their faces a mixture of determination and anxiety. They had practiced their speeches, rehearsed their stories, and now it was time to make their voices heard. "Are you ready for this?" Wang asked, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Marcus, who had transformed from a troublemaker to a leader, nodded vigorously. "We've got this, Mr. Wang. You changed our lives. Now it's our turn to show everyone how much you mean to us." As the students filed into the meeting room, the sense of unity among them was palpable. They took their seats, and the board members, including Mr. Thompson, settled in, ready to hear the arguments for and against Wang's continued employment. One by one, the students stood up to share their stories. Sarah, a quiet girl with a talent for poetry, spoke first. "Before Mr. Wang, I didn't think I had a voice. I felt invisible in a room full of people, but he taught me that my words matter. He made me believe in myself." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Wang watched as the audience began to lean in, captivated by the raw emotion in her voice. Next was Jamal, who had struggled with anger issues and often found himself in trouble. "I used to think school was pointless. I would act out just to get attention, but Mr. Wang showed me that I could use my anger to create something meaningful. He helped me channel it into art." As Jamal spoke, Wang felt a swell of pride. His students were not merely reciting lines, they were sharing their truths, their journeys of transformation. The heartfelt testimonies continued, each student weaving their own narrative of struggle and triumph, all underscoring the profound impact Mr. Wang had on their lives. As they finished, the room erupted into applause, a moment of recognition that transcended the usual formalities. Just as the applause began to die down, Mr. Thompson stood up. He cleared his throat and all eyes turned to him, a mix of apprehension and curiosity rippling through the crowd. "I have to say," he began, "I've been skeptical about Mr. Wang's methods. As an educator, I always believed in strict discipline, but I can't ignore the change I've seen in these students. It reminds me of my own past." A murmur ran through the audience. Wang held his breath, unsure of where Thompson's confession would lead. I was once a troubled kid. Just like many of you, I didn't believe anyone cared about me until one teacher took a chance on me. She showed me that education can be about compassion, not just rules. Seeing these students stand up for Mr. Wang today reminds me of how powerful that can be. The room was silent, the tension shifting as Mr. Thompson continued. Therefore, I propose a new initiative. Instead of cutting funding, we should be increasing it. Specifically for creative programs that foster this kind of engagement, I believe Mr. Wang should lead this initiative. Cheers erupted in the room, and Wang felt a rush of emotions, relief, gratitude, and joy. His students had fought for him, and now it seemed their efforts had paid off. As the board members exchanged surprised glances, Mr. Wang looked at his class, their faces alight with hope and excitement. They had not only advocated for their teacher, they had also forged a path for their own futures. In that moment, Wang understood that teaching was about more than just academics. It was about connection, understanding, and the ability to inspire change. The victory wasn't just his, it was theirs. Together, they had transformed not only their classroom but also the entire community. As the meeting adjourned, the students rushed to Wang, enveloping him in a group hug. "We did it, Mr. Wang," Marcus shouted, his joy infectious. Wang smiled, his heart swelling with pride for the young people he had grown to care for deeply. "No, you did it. You all showed the world what you're capable of. This is just the beginning." In that moment, surrounded by their laughter and cheers, Wang realized that he had found his purpose as an educator, not just to teach, but to empower and uplift.